Welcome everyone, my name is Manuel Martinez and this is another episode of Career Downloads, where each episode I basically hit the refresh button, bring on a different guest to learn more about their background, their experience, and just the different ways that they've managed their career to really be able to pull out those actionable items for you that you can go ahead and implement as you're managing your own career. So for today's episode, I have with me Cynthia Hara, and we met a few years ago. She is on the technology sales side, and she's done a lot of interesting side projects. There's a lot of speaking that she's done, so I think she brings a wealth of experience. Not everybody wants to do the hands-on keyboard, but she still is involved in technology, understands a lot of that and some of the business problems. So I think there's a lot of good information that she's going to provide to everybody. So with that, go ahead and plug in and download the knowledge, and I will introduce Cynthia.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate you coming on. It's definitely something that I think is of interest. So I think around the time that we met, I was also on the sales side, but I was on the sales engineer, and you're more on the account manager side. But definitely, I think that you're going to provide a lot of good information just in the conversations we've had, indirectly and on our own.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
So just to kind of, what I've been doing with everybody is if you just briefly tell me kind of what your current role is and some of the responsibilities, and then from there we'll start at the beginning and then just kind of work up to that.
All right, yeah. So when I know when you and I met a few years ago, I was working as an account executive for a global cybersecurity company, and then since then I now work at another cybersecurity company. So I moved about 3 years ago. So I just finished my 3 years at Rubrik. And so I'm still doing account executive. What that means is customer facing. So working with customers to essentially identify, what are their cybersecurity initiatives, how can we help them from a ransomware recovery perspective, and then, having more executive level conversations around how do we continue to improve, especially because, as security attacks keep on going up, and the cost of that always goes up as well. So just trying to help them manage their risk. And so I've been loving it. So that's basically the summary. A quick summary of my job.
Cool. And now, if you don't mind giving me and again, doesn't have to be in full detail, but just give me an idea of kind of a little bit of your background, kind of where you grew up, and then eventually what got you interested in technology, and then I guess kind of eventually, into that realm.
Yeah, I grew up in the Bay Area, so really the heart of technology. But when I was growing up, I never really considered technology for myself. My dad was an engineer though, but I thought I was going to go into fashion. So I used to Google, freefashioninternships.com to try and find something. They never pay in the fashion industry, so you had to work for free. But I went to a career fair for an art school thinking I was going to go into an art program, be a fashion designer, get on Project Runway, move to New York City. And I vividly remember I was standing in line behind this young woman, and she had a pizza box and just opens up this pizza box that had all these types of her artwork, textiles, sketching. And in my head I was like, oh God, I am not creative enough for this. So I quickly pivoted. I said I would go into business school, and so I ended up going to Cal Poly SLO, go Mustangs, and studied business there. And it was in the business program that you could pick concentrations. So you had to take at least one class from each concentration. And one thing I noticed when I took my information systems one was I was one of maybe a couple women in the class. And I thought, this could maybe be to my advantage in the future. So I decided to concentrate in information systems, and that's pretty much why I'm here today.
And what was it that really made you think that was going to be an advantage? Because a lot of times, just in my own experience and talking to other people, sometimes they feel that might be almost a disadvantage, right? Like there's so many other people that, in that case, so many other males, I'm the lone female, or one of probably a handful. So what made you think that that's an advantage versus a disadvantage?
Yeah, that's a great question. I guess I've never really been asked that before. I guess I just look at things differently. I never looked at that as that's going to be a disadvantage to me. I think that, in this day and age too, everything's so competitive that you want to stand out. So if I can immediately stand out just by being the only woman, then I was like, that already will, set me apart. And then from there, I also need to make sure that I know my stuff and can be, seen as a peer for maybe some of the male colleagues that I would have. So I didn't really look at it as like, oh, this is going to be scary, I'm the only girl. It was kind of like, okay, this is how I can stand out, and then take it from there. Yeah.
And then having your dad as an engineer, I mean, was there any kind of exposure? I know you mentioned that you were into fashion, but was there any kind of like, hey, engineering, or were you exposed to it even just seeing him do it at home?
Not really, actually. He was pretty hands-off in terms of, what I wanted to do. My parents were both very supportive if I were to pick fashion. And then, of course, after realizing that I maybe want to stick to something a little bit more technical than creativity, they were still supportive of that as well. I wish I could say more like, oh yeah, I was learning technology as a young kid in the Silicon Valley, but it really wasn't like that. I just wanted to do something that, I could still have. I was thinking I would have like a day job, work at a desk, but look cute. That was going to be my way of channeling my pre-fashion notions. Into just my everyday outfit, but I kind of stumbled into cybersecurity, if I'm being completely honest. I was taking an information systems class, which was about networking, actually. So I was just learning about firewalls and the OSI model. And I had a sorority sister post in our Facebook group chat saying, hey, my dad works for this cybersecurity company. They're looking for business development reps if anyone's interested. And senior year, I was interviewing for the Big Four, looking at jobs like business tech analysts. So in my head, I was like, oh, business development rep, business tech analyst, they're the same thing. So I ended up interviewing, and I didn't know that it was sales. I never thought I would go into sales. I always thought that's the last thing I want to do. I never want to do sales. And I didn't realize business development rep was a fancy way of saying cold caller. So I went through the interview process, and they were like, yeah, this is a sales job, that, right? And I'm like, yeah, I know.
You got to appear confident at that point, right?
I'm like, of course. And they were like, yeah, you should check out our stock price. We're doing pretty well. And at this point, it was like 2016-ish, 2017. So I'm looking up their stock price. I'm like, oh, this stock price isn't bad. So I just kept going with the interview process. And that's pretty much how I landed in cybersecurity. I had taken this firewall class, so I knew that this company does firewalls. I'm like, okay, I'm set.
Well, and it's funny because you bring up an important part is a lot of times, a lot of these job postings, they sound similar, right? Like you thought, oh, business development, business analyst. And even reading the descriptions in most of these companies, like you'll get like this 2-page thing, mainly talking about the company itself, and then there's a little blurb about, hey, this is what you're going to do. Mm-hmm. And so I can only imagine that was quite a shock. But I'm glad that you apparently had the, I don't want to say not just confidence, but like the ability to just kind of remain calm and say, oh, yeah, of course I'm still interested, right?
You gotta pivot, guys.
Would you think that you're a quick, like, are you quick on your feet like that normally? Like to be able to just say, hey, yes? I mean, most people, might freeze or say, well, I don't know, or just kind of change their mind, but you decided to go through.
I think one thing I can do pretty well is like fast decision making, and also I don't want to look silly. So I'm like, if it just means saying like, yeah, absolutely, I knew that was sales, that's easy. Obviously, there's certain situations where I would have to roll it back a little bit, but for this one, I was like, well, I'm looking for a job. I thought this was a tech job. I guess it's sales, but you're selling technology, so close enough. And in fact, actually going through the interview process, they, were talking to me. They're like, oh, okay, so you don't have any corporate experience. Oh, you don't have sales experience. We're looking for someone with a little bit more experience. So here, how about you read this book and come back to us in 30 days if you still want to try this. And it was the Challenger sale book, if you knew that one at all. And there's so many sales books out there, but they had me read this book. So I spent the next couple weeks going through reading about how you essentially you're challenging a customer, ask them different questions because maybe they want to stay with the status quo. So it's about that. And then I came back 30 days later. I was like, I read the book. I think it's interesting. Still would love to go for the job if you still have a position open. So they said, sure. So that's what allowed me to just continue going through the process. I think they wanted to see if I would follow up, which is a good sales skill. I didn't know this at the time, but making sure that, actually I did what they wanted me to and that I followed up with them to see if there was still an open position. So I think they were like, okay, let's give her a shot.
It's interesting because, you said it, right? In sales specifically, right? They want to make sure that they have somebody that goes through and follows up with the customer, right? In that case, it's with them. Yeah. But then the other thing is probably like, they're also giving you an out. Like, maybe she doesn't really want to do this.
Right, exactly. Like a nice way of saying, hey, maybe this isn't for you. I don't know. So, but I'm glad I went through with it. Obviously it's led me to where I am today, but it is interesting, those like little moments of where, someone did put up a little bit of an obstacle and just wanted to test the waters to see if I could get through it. And obviously this is just reading a book, but it's a minor one. I guess I could have stopped at any moment, but.
And that book, after reading that book, did you decide that, is it more just, hey, I just want to get some experience, so I'll take it? Or was it, hey, this actually doesn't sound so bad. It sounds like something I can do. Like, let me actually give it a shot.
Mm-hmm. And what I really love about sales now, which I didn't see back then and having never done sales before, is, if you can find a product that works well, then you can be the sales rep that just wants to help you find a solution, right? Knowing that you've got a good product behind you, how can we help? I like that aspect. I think my previous connotation of sales was like a car sales rep trying to make the most money out of you and being really sleazy with different sales tactics, and I've never liked that. So I didn't think I wanted to do it. And then now being in a role where I'm like, okay, like I'm just trying to help find a problem, right? Let's find a problem and then we can put together a solution to help you with this problem. And hopefully it fits within your budget, we'll work with you, right? Like that to me is a more interesting conversation and also more fun because I don't feel like I'm trying, I don't know, I hope I don't give off that vibe to a customer. I don't think I do, but of them thinking like, oh, she's just here to make money off of me. Like, I don't want to do that. If I could sell it to you for free, I would. But I have bills to pay too.
No, and I agree, right? Mm-hmm. It's a lot easier to have those types of conversations when it's something that, and having the understanding of like, hey, how firewalls work, what the implications are. Mm-hmm. So you're really just trying to help. And I think, I've never been one of your customers, but the interactions I've had with you, it's very much, you give off that feeling of like, hey, I just want to know more about your environment, know more about you, how can I help? Mm-hmm. And, so I can't imagine that they see you as the sleazy car salesperson.
I would hope not. I think that's like, I had a customer tell me like, you're a really chill sales rep. I'm like, perfect. But one thing I've gotten better at this now over the years is more around like manifestation and just knowing that, okay, as long as I'm doing the right things for my customer and I'm not trying to chase money, like money will always come. I guess that's my new motto because before I even last year, I think I was really stressed out and kind of being like, oh my God, I'm not going to hit my numbers. And I know it's tough, but then just as long as I kept putting in the, all the things I needed to, following up with customers, being responsive, also understanding like, hey, if a customer says not right now, don't keep hammering them, right? Just leave them alone for a bit, they come back. And so that's really been helpful for me where I'm like, I'm not chasing money. I attract money.
And that's funny. within probably the last year, I've had somebody that kind of did the same thing. So so manifestation is one thing, but do you also set goals kind of for yourself? Because one of the things, and I had a friend of mine, Janetta, where she went through and talked about, okay, same thing. As long as you're doing the right steps, the right processes, it will pay off, right? It's not going to be instant, like, oh, I did these 5 things, tomorrow it's coming.
Yes. Yeah.
It'll come when it's supposed to. But then also she had said, write it down. Even if it's a sticky note, it's better if you see it all the time, but just the simple act of like writing your goals, like, hey, this is the numbers I want to hit. Here's the things that I am going to accomplish at that time. Are you at that level, or are you just kind of thinking privately to yourself, like, this is what I'm going to do, this is what's going to happen?
Yeah. Interesting she said to write down. I agree, because manifestation without goals is just dreaming, like it's nice thought. They're nice thoughts. When I first moved to Vegas, and this was 5 years ago, I put down, what my list of goals are going to be. And my first one was be the number one, go-to cybersecurity advisor in Nevada. And so, since that time, I think I've just been, building relationships with people to the point where, my customers know who I am, or they can speak highly of me to refer me to other customers. And so that's been a way where I'm like, okay, that's still something I'm working on, because I don't think it's something you just achieve and then are done, right? It's a continual process. But I did write it down.
And then is it something you revisit? Or is it just a kind of like hey, I wrote it down and I'm done?
I check it. Probably I should do it more. I do once, like every year, check in. So like I have my, my 2019 goals, 2020, 2021. I didn't write down this year's, so I've been bad, but I guess they haven't really changed since last year.
That's awesome. So you come into this new role, right? Obviously not thinking that you're going to be cold calling. What were some of the challenges that you had there? Because I can imagine that it's not fun I'm assuming you're probably getting rejected easily, maybe 60, 70% of the time. So what was that process?
Yeah, it was rough. I was very lucky. I had a great manager to start off my first first sales job. She was immediately trying to connect me with mentors, so we can talk about mentorship later. But I think it ended up being something where I found a lot of coworkers that I could bond with to help us through the trauma, if you will, and the rejection. But we would come up with, sales campaigns and what are messaging that worked. So I do think, like if you are going to pick that sort of role, to find people that you can, share experiences with, maybe like what's been working, what's not been working, and make it sort of a community effort in a way. Like, hey, if this sales like messaging, like this talk track is working for you, share it out with your team. So I think finding community in that helped a lot. But it was definitely hard. I think I did it for about 11 months. By the 9th month, I was telling my VP of inside sales, Amy, she's awesome. I was like, I want to quit. I don't think this is for me. Like maybe I want to go into channel, or maybe I want to be an engineer. I don't know. And she was like, well, you're really good with people, so just stick it out. Like, yeah, the cold calling sucks, but if you can get in front of customers, I think you'll have a much better experience. So by the 11th month, I was able to get promoted. So I went from cold caller to an inside sales rep, meaning I supported field reps like myself now. I had about 7 or 8 field reps I supported across Nevada, Arizona, Utah, Colorado, New Mexico. And I would help them find a new business in their customer base, or help them manage their customers, right? Like doing health checks, like very customer success type of role. But then also run like small deals. And that was a good way for me to say, okay, actually, I really like talking to customers, not when I'm cold calling them trying to get time and they're like, why should we talk to you? Goodbye. So being an inside sales rep helped me to see that, okay, I could maybe be a field rep.
It kind of gave you, and is that kind of by design, the way that they do it, like being a gradual progression, right? Because one, you get that experience, and they're probably also weeding out people that, hey, sales isn't for me, but now you've kind of moved into this junior sales rep. And it's awesome that you had kind of mentors and just people that could see the potential. And as an inside sales rep? I mean, it sounds like you're supporting, like you said, 7 different sales reps across a wide range of territories. How did you work through managing all those different things? Because it's different when you have like your set accounts or you're working with one person. Is that something that you've kind of developed over time, getting better at the follow through and making sure that you're not missing things? Because I can assume that at that level, there's a chance that you might forget something, right? Not on purpose, but it could happen.
Absolutely. The biggest thing that helped me was building my brand. So that was one of the first things that my manager told me, Delphina. She's amazing too. But she was saying that, you everyone's always watching was one of the first things she said. So she was like, you better be doing a lot of the right activity, but then also now you have to let people know that you're doing this activity, or else how are they going to know? Everyone has their own stuff to be thinking about. So, building relationships with my field reps, like starting to reach out to all of them, get time on their calendars, have a list ready of, hey, here are all the prospects I found in your account base that I'm going to be going after. Here are some current customers that I see some maybe expansion opportunities. And so, just start to look impressive, because there's people, more than you think, there's people that can't do what you're doing, right? So if you can start to do that more consistently, and then, reach out to their manager. So we called them district sales managers. That was essentially the field rep or field sales manager, and reach out to him to start building a relationship with him so that he knows you're here and you're here to help here, and send an email. Don't have to set up a call every time, but send like a weekly progress email. Here are all the meetings that I set up, here's the ones that convert into opportunities. Like, start to do all that so that people start being like, oh, Cynthia like is doing stuff, and like, look at all the help that she's doing with these reps. And basically just have the reps, like, for my strategy was get the reps talking about how much they like working with me. And so that made other sales reps that weren't, because not all 7 were going to take me up on that, right? But if I could find like a couple that were seeing like, okay, she seems like she's interested and wants to help, like, sure, let's have her roll with it. And then start to be like, oh wow, Cynthia got me into this white space account, or she set up this meeting and it turned into this opportunity. Then I had my other sales reps be like, well, hold on a second, I want to work with her too. So, and then even had other, field reps be like, what's this team doing that, like, how can we do that in our team? So there were reps that weren't even on my team that were starting to hit up their inside sales reps being like, hey, have you talked to Cynthia? So that was one of the strategies, because at this point I was like, okay, I want to go into the field, but how do I get to the field? And so it was building a relationship with those field reps that then would say, yeah, you should totally, like, I could see you as a field rep, right. and basically help spread the word. So a little bit of a long-term play.
And that's perfect, right? And you mentioned kind of building your brand, and that's something that I always was taught at an early age. So my dad ran a construction business. And I remember, I had the advantage of, he's the boss, mm-hmm. and there'd be a lot of times where I'm like, oh, I thought I was being sneaky as a, like a teenager and going and hanging out and not doing stuff. And one of the things, and he brought it to my attention as me as an individual, but then he would notice, with his workers, he's like, someone's always watching, right? Hey, just because the boss isn't there doesn't mean that the coworkers aren't, or there's, mm-hmm. Hey, there's other people, like, they're seeing the activities you're doing. Mm-hmm. So if I'm, I could have easily have been branded like, oh, the boss's son who just sits in the corner and does nothing all day, right? And eventually I was like, oh, okay, I guess you're right. I guess I should do the work just like everybody else. Mm-hmm. Yep. So doing those types of activities, and you mentioned, kind of putting all this together, do you have a strategy for how you maintain and kept track of all of these types of things? I mean, it sounds like it'd be beneficial in your role, but even just me, I'll tell you that I'm not the best at always keeping track of the activity. So what is it that you do?
Back then I was working on like a Saturday. I would just post up at a coffee shop and put together some lists. Now I just try to allocate like even an hour just to say, okay, who are the people I really need to follow up with tomorrow, and what did I not get to today that I really need to work on, and work a little bit extra in the evenings. but it is really just setting aside some time and just saying, okay, in this hour, how much can we get done in terms of what did I do, what did I not do, what do I need to do next, and putting a little bit more structure. But when I was going up from like inside sales to field sales, I was so focused on being a field sales rep that for me, saying, okay, I'm going to spend all Saturday to work on these lists was worth it.
Those lists that you were keeping track of, or even just like that hour that you're setting aside, do you keep like a running list of kind of what you're doing, or is it, hey, by me planning and me sending these emails, I can just aggregate these emails later?
So it was more of a running list, because that way when I would get something done, I would just take it off the list. So it was a nice way to say, okay, I wrote some stuff yesterday that I didn't get done. Okay, I need to prioritize those. Or it gives me an opportunity to say, is this really a priority? Does it need to be done? Maybe I thought it was, but now looking back, there's other things that should be more higher priority.
So you're obviously starting to establish a name for yourself as, somebody who is obviously efficient, is helpful, and you mentioned that other reps, and not even within your territory but outside, are trying to replicate and understand what it is that you're doing. So how long did it take for you to kind of establish yourself as that type of worker or that type of person?
Yeah, maybe in about 6 months or so. After getting into the next roll up, so like as the lowest level, the business development rep, I was like, okay, I know now, as soon as I got into this role, that everyone's always watching. I had another coworker actually tell me, perception is everything. So, no one has to really know what's going on behind the scenes, but whatever you're showing to the world, that's what they think is real. Or perception is reality was the quote, right? So I did the BDR job for about 11 months, got promoted, and so came in guns a-blazing into this inside sales rep to say, okay, I'm going to be the best inside sales rep that any rep will have, so that they talk about it and, like maybe help promote me to the next level. So I did that for about 10 months, 11 months, and then I ended up getting the field rep position. But I'll back up a little bit. Essentially, I had a field rep leave. She got a different opportunity to be a global account manager somewhere else. So the Nevada and Arizona market was open for named accounts for private sector. And so I played field rep with my boss's permission and the field DSM's permission to say, hey, can I work some of these accounts because there's no account coverage? And they were like, sure, whatever. We're not giving you a raise, but but you can absolutely work them. So I paired up with the field SE at the time, and then he and I would set up all the meetings, have like a full day in Arizona or again Phoenix or in Vegas, and then fly home to the Bay Area, or I would spend a couple days. So I started to be the field rep in a way, and that helped as well because, to get to the next step up, sometimes you just have to start doing that job so people visualize it and say, okay, she could do it. So I ended up just playing field rep and getting good experience from actually, leading a presentation in front of customers or bringing in the right resources to talk about, some kind of overlay product, and ended up, interviewing for that position. Did not get it. There was a new manager that came on board, and he essentially, he graciously let me interview. But after I was done, he was like, that was good, but we're actually looking for someone in Vegas that already has, connections. And so that kind of disqualifies you. And so that was a bummer, but at the same time, at least it gave me the opportunity to put my foot out or put my name out there. And then the public sector manager reached out to me, and he was like, hey, I heard you're interested in a position in Nevada or Arizona. We're hiring for someone in Vegas. Are you interested? And I'd never done public sector before, but I just decided, okay, this is one of those one door closes, another door opens situation. So I interviewed for that position and got it. So that's what really brought me from the Bay Area to Vegas.
One of the things I really want to touch on that you mentioned is having that open position, and I'm assuming you had the confidence and the drive to want to go through it. Not many times do people go through and ask for that opportunity. So is that just something that you kind of thought of on your own on the spot and just said, hey, if I can prove that I can do the job, they're going to give me the opportunity? Or, especially because you said you're not getting promoted. You can do the work. It's more work, but you're not getting the pay, right? You're going to continue to be the inside sales rep.
Yep.
So really, what kind of pushed you to go through and do that, right? And take that step? Because a lot of people might say, well, it's open. I guess I have to wait for like an actual posting or something like that.
Yeah, I had a mentor say, ask for forgiveness later. So I was just, starting to set up meetings and whatnot, and then went to my boss and was like, hey, there's opportunities here that we're missing out on. Can I cover it? And like, would that be okay? I'll still do my other job. So I think just going for it, don't be scared. The worst they can say is no, right? You already have a job. It's not like you're going to get fired for doing more work. Like if anything, it's in the company's best interest probably to have you, do something that they technically need to pay someone else way more money to do. So I kind of felt like a win-win because I got the experience, and then, they got to have a little bit of coverage while they didn't have anyone there. And I cost less than a field position.
and not being afraid of no, right? So, that experience of being that cold caller and getting no a lot. And sure, you mentioned, kind of leaning on each other, but did that repetitiveness basically make you feel comfortable in knowing that no is not the end of the world, right? Like there's just going to be a lot of no's before you get a yes, but a lot of times we're scared of like that rejection. Oh, somebody says no, or, just in any situation, not even just in sales, right? Like, oh, hey, why don't you go? It reminds me of, I saw a video of a person that goes through and to work negotiations. And it says what they would do is the people that are really good at it started small. Every time they would go to like a coffee shop or anywhere, hey, can I get a discount? Can I get a 5% discount? And they would just ask, no, you can't. Okay. Yeah. And you just get comfortable with what's the worst that's going to happen? They'll say no. Do you think that early part really influenced the ability to go through, and now you're taking those bigger shots? It sounds like you also have mentors though that are kind of telling you, hey, do this, but they can tell you all day, but if you don't feel comfortable doing it, you're not going to. So far, are all those experiences kind of shaping and molding that?
I believe so. Yeah, that was one thing that I learned early on with the cold calling, right? Is that if someone says no, it's not because they're saying no to you as a person. It's just they're saying no to whatever you're offering. So you have to kind of take yourself out of it in a way. It's not personal, right? They're just saying no to the offer, but it's not like they're saying like, no, Cynthia, we hate you. And I had some customers that are prospects I've heard, and no one's ever screamed at me over the phone. So maybe that's, that part of that, when I hear some of my coworkers that would tell me that they got screamed at by, like when I was a BDR, and they're like, oh, well, they're probably not yelling at you because you're a girl. I don't know, maybe. I can't prove that, or also, say that that's, not true or is true or whatever. But that could be your tone of voice. I don't know how they're, aggressively calling someone. But even if I've never been screamed at on the phone, even if someone says no, it's not anything personal. So I think that's the biggest lesson. And then even now in my new life, just being able to ask for more, and even if it's a no, it's not a big deal. Like, okay,
You won't know if you don't try.
Yeah, exactly. You miss all the shots you don't take.
So that's pretty cool that, again, now you didn't apply for this public sector position, but again, you mentioned it's establishing your brand, being that type of person, interviewing, and I'm assuming that person that you interviewed that told you no probably maybe even told this other person. I mean, did you ever find out anything like that, or just?
I don't know, so I can't confirm that. I just do know that I knew some of the field reps loosely from that team, so I don't know who referred me really, but it was also small enough of a company where even the managers all talk to each other. So it's very possible. Yeah.
So then you get this, did they just offer you the position? Did you have to interview?
I still interviewed, but it was, I already worked for the company. So they were like, let's see how you do a pitch. And then I did a pitch and they're like, okay, you're hired.
Well, I'm sure a lot of the prior work that you've done before also helps, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not like you're coming off the street. And
I think now, because they've grown so much, they have a very, very formal way of interviewing people. So that maybe isn't the case anymore. But this one, they were like, okay, do you know the product? You can build relationships, check. Okay, you're hungry. You can do the job. We're looking for someone. Why don't you give it a go type of thing. I don't know if I'm diminishing it, but.
And now that challenge of you're in a new territory, you were working with people in Nevada, but now this is public sector. So it's kind of a new territory because it's a completely different set of contacts in that area.
Yeah.
It's a new state. And I'm assuming at this point you moved as well. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of changes, new place. You're having to deal with the challenges of, I've had to find a new place. I've got to, basically settle yourself in. At the same time, you still got to do your job. Mm-hmm. So what was that like?
It was a lot. I basically moved here, had no friends, except my customers that I worked with in the private sector side. So, this is all a whole new customer base. And I actually remember I reached out. I got a beer with one of my previous customers on the private sector side, and I was telling him like, yeah, I just, I don't know anyone here. I'm really excited, but a little nervous. And he was like, well, do you want to come have dinner with my wife and I? I'm making cedar plank salmon if you want to come over. And looking back, I'm like, this could be the start of a true crime documentary. But at the time I was like, I need some friends. Like, yeah, let's do it. So I went to this customer's house, and he luckily was not a serial killer. He had cedar plank salmon, and I enjoyed a lovely dinner with him and his wife. But yeah, I guess long story short was I was very excited to meet people, but had really no way to do that because all I knew were people from work. So I did convince my best friend to move. She used to be a bartender in Washington, so I convinced her to move to Vegas because I was like, you can do the same job but in Vegas, but make way more money, live with me, and there's UNLV, CSN if you ever want to go to school. Like, it's a win-win. So
selling already.
Yeah, I know. I had a sales presentation for reasons why you should move to Vegas, and she moved. So we lived together. And then COVID happened. It was about 9 months living in Vegas. And then COVID obviously shut everything down, which put a huge wrench in, all the fun plans I had for us and to meet with customers on site. I mean, that just went out the window for a while. The deals that I had working were gone. I mean, Clark County was like, hey, we lost $1 billion in a week, so we're not buying anything. And so that was a crazy adjustment as well. And I think it was a blessing that I lived in Nevada because, as you know, Vegas opened back up pretty quickly. Within a few months, I would say things were somewhat back to normal, maybe like bare bones-ish, right? Whereas if I was in California, a lot of my California peers, no one was meeting. Everyone was very locked down. People didn't even want to talk. So I am glad that I did live here where it was a little bit more 50-50 open, but careful type of thing. But yeah, I mean, it just took a long time of just building relationships with my partners and new customers. Slowly just living here where I joined the gym. I started to do sort of external type activities to start to build a bit more of a community here to now I feel like, okay, I have my friend group, I have my family here, so.
And that had to be quite a challenge, right? So, like you said, you're starting to try to establish a relationship with some of these people, and then now all of a sudden you can't meet with them, you can't really build that. I'm sure at first it was kind of okay doing the Zoom, but I remember that they would get that Zoom fatigue, right? Like they wouldn't want to meet, or it's almost kind of back to the cold calling days where you're talking to them on a Zoom call, but nobody has their cameras on. So how did you continue, or what are some of the ways that you were able to kind of still establish that relationship, even though you kind of don't, it's almost like a phone only relationship.
Yeah, it ended up actually working out because I was, trying to get people's cell phone numbers to just start to build a relationship over the phone and say, okay, can we text, this Zoom, let's not get on a Zoom meeting, can I just text you or can I just call you? So it was maybe a way to just kind of start building a relationship. I know it was virtual, but people build virtual relationships all the time. So it ended up being okay. And then as soon as offices could meet in person, I would say, hey, can I bring lunch? Can we just meet in person, grab a coffee or something? So it ended up being a way to use like the Zoom fatigue as a way to try and meet in person again. I don't know if that necessarily answered the question, but it was just more trying to find all kinds of different alternate solutions. Or if someone said, I like meeting in Zoom, I'd be like, me too, Zoom's not so bad. Let's put on our cameras. Or if someone's like, yeah, I don't want to do a Zoom meeting, I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I'm getting carried. Because I felt both ways. It wasn't a lie. Like sometimes I hated it, sometimes I didn't mind it. I'd rather meet in person. So I was a little bit of a chameleon, like whatever worked better for you, I'm down type of thing.
So yeah, that's awesome. Having that adaptability, and you did answer the question, right? It's just how did you do that? And it sounds like being able to go through and say, hey, can we text? Can I call you? Can I do all these things? So it wasn't just only Zoom. You're like, hey, let's find other ways, because just like you, I'm tired, but occasionally you're like, I do want to put on my camera and talk to you. Mm-hmm. And so you're establishing these relationships. It sounds like things are opening up. Are there any other challenges that you're seeing around that time? So now things are starting to open up. You're establishing yourself now as a field rep. So kind of what's kind of the next thing for Cynthia?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think one of the next things for me is, really just working on my brand still. So from just my everyday work perspective, one of the things I've been focused on is putting together some cool events and kind of being like, hey, Cynthia's got a cool, I just want to embody like, hey, if you're gonna learn from us or do a lunch and learn or whatever you want to get out of our events, like it's gonna be awesome. So I've been trying to establish myself more as that as well, so that if you hear like, oh, Cynthia from Rubric is inviting you to an event, it's gonna be a good one, like beneficial in terms of, are you gonna learn something? Are you gonna meet new people? One thing that I learned from someone recently was, your network is your currency, right? So if you can call someone and ask them for a favor and they say, yeah, like that's money, right? And so my skill that I've learned along the way is that I'm really good at connecting people. So like if you need someone that, if you know someone that needs to start a business, hey, I know someone that has literally an entrepreneurship what do you call them? Incubator program, right? So like, I want to be able to help people in that way and say like, okay, come to my event and you'll network and meet some awesome people, and that's my value that I bring. So that's a big focus of mine. And through that too, I started a nonprofit as well. So this is around like women in technology, leadership, and business. One thing I noticed as I lived in Vegas was, there wasn't really a women in technology group around here. And I know that there are some in other cities that I cover. Like I now cover Arizona and Utah. And so there is a big community out in Phoenix, but I was like, where's the one in Nevada? So I just decided to take matters into my own hands. And I noticed that in downtown Summerlin, there used to be a store called Oil and Vinegar. It was like olive oil, fancy olive oils and balsamic vinaigrettes. And I asked if they do private events. And so the lady that worked there was like, absolutely, we can put together a very nice charcuterie board or cheese spread. You can do like olive oil tastings. And I was like, what woman wouldn't love that? I love that kind of stuff. So.
I'm not a woman and I want to
go. Yeah, we are opening it up to men now too. But like for that first event, I was like, you know what? I don't know any like charcuterie board type events around here. So I teamed up with a couple other women that I knew were also interested in, this sort of event. And I ended up, sponsoring it between the four of us, or each of us all sponsored a little bit through our companies, and got a group of like 34, 35 women there. Since last January, it's been a success. So January 2023 was our first event. And then since then, we've had events almost quarterly, to the point where at the end of last year, I was like, let's make this official and be a nonprofit. So it's official, Nevada Thrive Network for Women. It's kind of our group to help women learn from each other, connect with each other, connect other agencies. That was one thing I did too, like being a sales rep, is how can I add more value to my customer, right? If I can connect my customer with a similar peer in another agency saying, hey, I think you two should meet, then that could be valuable, right? I mean, it could go nowhere or it could go somewhere awesome. So what's the worst that could happen?
Right. No, that's cool. Just hearing you, kind of your brand and just your personality, just in the things that you're talking about, like throughout this conversation, like I mentioned at the beginning, like I can tell that you're not that sleazy salesperson, but you are very helpful. Like you're always looking to try, how can I help? How can I improve? And like you said, your network is your currency, because to be able to put on your first event and have 34 people show up, that's not nothing, right? I mean, I would have, if I were to put something on, I would think to myself, man, if I could get double digits, if I could get 10 people to show up, that'd be amazing. But it sounds like that brand, the ability of like, hey, if Cynthia's putting something on, because by this time you've already done all these other events, you're establishing that brand is, okay, this is worth going for, because even there's going to be something I'm going to get out of it. Mm-hmm. And that networking, is that something that you've had just a passion for? You've developed that skill over time? Like how has that kind of grown, and that influence? Like what are some of the approaches that you've taken to continue to grow your network?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you. You're welcome to come to any of our events. Our last one was in August, and we had over 80 people go to that one, and over 120 people registered. So that was our big, like every August around Black Hat DEF CON, we do our kind of annual big event. But most of them we target about like 30 to 40 people-ish. But no, in terms of networking, it's something that I've grown to appreciate. When I was in college, the term just sounded so stuffy and fake. It just seems fake. But I actually learned a lot about networking from when I was in Greek life in sororities. When I went through the rush process, I didn't realize that you really just have to make a good first impression in under 20 minutes. Maybe less, maybe like 5, but then, hold a conversation for 20 minutes, and have to basically put up a front in a way of like, you just want the person you're talking to have a good experience with you, right? Because you want them to rush your house or want to be in your house. And you don't necessarily have to show that they would be the right fit for you guys, but you still have to be very warm and welcoming and make someone feel like, oh, like I could see myself in this house. So that was essentially my first taste of networking, was talking to, almost 100 girls, but making them feel welcome, and then considering, okay, would they be like, could they fit with other girls in the house? Could they be a good, good member, have some friends, and build a community essentially. But at the time, I didn't realize that was essentially networking. And then going into, the corporate world and realizing that, anyone I speak to, I want them to have a pleasant experience of me. But I don't necessarily have to like them. You just don't want them to hate you. And so that's been something I've kept up with, throughout my career. And, as you know, there can be some difficult customers. Same thing applies, right? You just have them like you. You don't have to like them, but they have to like you, because people buy from people. So you just have to kind of put your own, thoughts about someone else to the side and make sure that they at least have a wonderful, experience talking to you or working with you, planning an event with you, that kind of thing.
how valuable do you see within networking? Similar to you, right? I remember going to college and, hey, you network, and it was just like, that feels gross, right? I don't want to do that. You mentioned following up as a sales rep. So within networking, to be able to ask somebody, hey, for a favor, or hey, meet up with these things, you probably aren't doing that with somebody that you last talked to maybe 8 years ago, unless 8 years ago you established such a great relationship. So what are some of your tips that you would say, how do you continue not only to build your network, but then maintain those relationships within there? Because you have the people that you contact with all the time, but then there's people that you don't, but it's not that you don't want to, it's just...
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up. I have people that will message me on LinkedIn basically saying like, hey, how's it going? And by the way, haven't talked to them for, almost a decade. And they're like, hey, how's it going? I'm looking at a job at Rubrik, want to see if you would recommend me. And to me, unless I have known them really well in the past, where I'm like, yeah, I remember working with you. Like, yeah, you were great. Like, that's fine. But my tip for that is to not lead with something where you're asking a favor, right? Like if you can, maybe you notice that your connection works at a company you want to work for, maybe start with opening up that's something that's gonna be relevant for them, right? Like, hey, I saw this event. It reminds me of when, we had gone to this event together, thought this would be interesting for you. How are you doing? Like, just opening up the door again for a conversation without necessarily asking a favor immediately, I think is better in a way, or more effective. Or I'll text someone, like if I haven't heard from them in a while, just say, hey, checking in, like, how's it going? I remembered this thing and it made me think of you. And just still maintaining a light connection. It's not like you have to be best friends with everyone, because that's just simply impossible. But checking in with people that, you wish them well, and maybe there is something that you might need from them in the future. You just don't want to come to them immediately with that thing if you haven't talked to them in years. So that's kind of my trick, is I'll just check in with like some of my old bosses, or, coworkers I used to work with, or my old mentors. I check in saying, hey, missed our chats, or hey, I said this one quote and it reminded me of when you said it to me. Like I said that to my mentor in Colorado, where she was saying that she never interviews for a job, and that's just her goal, is to never have to interview, have enough good relationships where people just come to you with offers. And so I told that to someone, and I texted her just saying, hey, you said this to me years ago. Appreciate ya. But I think those little bits of just sending, it's almost like you're sending a bid out in a way, to a bid for connection, and maintaining that way you don't have to feel like, hey, oh my gosh, I do want a job at this company and I haven't talked to this person in years. It just feels a little weird to ask for a recommendation when they don't even know you anymore. Right.
I've noticed that. So for a while, I was probably, especially on LinkedIn, right? I was kind of active. I would be in there, but I wasn't active to the point where I had been even prior to kind of starting the podcast, where I would kind of go through, read articles, reach out, and just start making connections. And it's funny, some of the connections that I haven't talked to in a while, I would see something that they would post. I'm like, oh, hey, I would message them directly, just, hey, how's it going? And it's funny that you mentioned reaching out to a job, because I've had a couple people that hasn't happened often, but a couple times where they're almost taken back at the fact that I didn't ask for something. Yeah. They're like, oh, hey, how's it going? I was like, oh, I thought about you, or I saw something you posted, and it was just, how's it going? They're like, oh, great. And they're like, what's going on there? Yeah. And the one that stands out to me is Amy, or I don't remember if it was somebody that had gone through and was like, oh, are you looking for a job? And I'm like, no. Yeah. And I was like, no, I'm pretty happy where I'm at. It's like, if at some point I was like, I'll start looking. I was just really curious to see how you were, because I see that you're now at this place. And they're like, oh, yep. They kind of gave me that their information about their job. But again, it was just that feeling of, oh, I haven't talked to this person in 3 years. They're reaching out because they want something. Yeah. So you probably don't want to, probably happens more often than not. But then outside of that, are there certain connections that you are reaching out to assist? So let's say maybe it's been 3 years since you've talked to them and you've had a decent relationship. Again, you're not asking them for a job. So how are you approaching, is it kind of the same thing? Just
a little bit. If I have had a conversation, even if it's been a few years, I can usually just be able to text them or message. Usually if I have a good enough relationship, I have their number, right? So I would prefer to text because I feel like that's the most personal way. Versus a LinkedIn message, it's probably, there's a little bit of a level of separation there. So if I have their number and I feel like even if I haven't talked to them in a while, like there's a couple like field reps that I still have a good relationship. If I see them out, hey, how's it going? So I feel comfortable texting them if they work somewhere where I'm like, mind if you throw in a good word for me, right? But for a LinkedIn message, I think that's where I like your approach, right? Of commenting or being active, right? Liking something they post or comment on it or send it to them, right? And say, hey, if you want to make it a little bit more private, you can send their post to them and just say, hey, this is awesome. I have some questions on it. Like stay engaged in that way. Even offer up your number. Like if I want to continue a relationship with someone, and move it off of LinkedIn, make it a little more serious. Here's my number. If you ever need anything, text me. And then, usually if I get a text from them, then I'll save their number and now I have it. And that just kind of helps take that bridge away from like that LinkedIn separation. But yeah, like if you just come to someone asking for a favor, they're going to have their wall up, right? I mean, a little bit. If someone you haven't spoken to in 3-5 years that, you only know through LinkedIn and they never reach out to you for anything except, hey, want that job. I see this job posting. Like you're going to have your wall up too. So it's more just trying to take that away by like what you're doing, engaging, even just little comments here and there. Awesome to see, you're crushing it, just like words of encouragement. What harm does it do to send someone, a congrats or something positive, right? Yeah. If anything, they read it and it puts a smile on their face or makes their day. And then they're like, oh, got a nice message from Manny. That's nice. Like associate happy thoughts with Manny. So
that's awesome. So outside of kind of the things that we've talked about, we mentioned, you going through kind of moving up. Is there any other kind of advice that you could think of? So it sounds like outside of going from you've worked at the two main cybersecurity companies, internally, kind of interviewing, is there anything that you would say, hey, from an interview standpoint, salary negotiations, things of that nature, is there anything that you can think of that like, hey, this is something I learned back then that I think would be beneficial or, insightful?
Yeah, I guess I have a few. So one of them is finding mentors. As soon as you get to a new job, just trying to find, who are the top reps, who are the top sales reps and why, and then reaching out to them, right? Because a mentorship doesn't mean, hey, can you be my mentor, and then nothing else, right? You kind of have to ask for their time. It is a time commitment, right? Because they're going to be now focusing energy on you. So it is, I didn't realize you have to formally ask someone to be your mentor. And then they have to accept, right? Or else, it's not really a mentorship. So I would say I always recommend, find someone that would agree to be your mentor, and maybe give them even a little like a prep call, right? Of like, hey, here are a few things I noticed you're doing that I would love to learn from you. Can you commit to a monthly call or bi-weekly? I mean, whatever that is, that way it's a clear understanding of like what your goals are and what's the time commitment that they are going to be required to, adhere to, right? So, and then see if they say yes. I mean, maybe they say, hey, I don't have the time, but then you can find someone else, and that's fine. But most times I feel like people do respect it and are open to being a mentor because they learn from the experience as well. So I would say that's one of the first things to do, because you can really just learn so much from other people, especially if they're doing the job that you want, or they've been doing the job for a long time and are successful. It doesn't really matter, right? Like I just recently asked one of my teammates to be my mentor, because he's been at Rubrik for 8-9 years and is always the number one rep. And I'm like, there is something you're doing that I just need to understand. So we've committed to, meeting every other Friday.
And as part of that mentorship program, so you mentioned it's a time commitment on their side. Is there anything that you do from your standpoint to kind of, I don't want to say give to them as well, but really just what are you doing to kind of get them to say, okay, I'll continue this time, but really want to continue and say, make it feel like it's worth a good use of their time. Mm-hmm. So what are you doing as a mentee?
Yeah, so a big thing is, at the end of the mentorship call, usually they have some recommendations like, hey, here are some things that I do in my day. Hopefully this helps you. Then throughout, like before you meet next, start sending them, results of their help, right? To say, hey, I did exactly what you said, and this is what the customer said back, or this is what the partner said, and just give them like updates along the way. Or, if you don't have time for that, you can just at least gather them all up, and then at your next meeting, showcase like, okay, I took what you said, this is what happened, or here's what didn't work, so maybe I did it wrong. It just becomes kind of a work in progress. And they can also, I think there is some satisfaction too, to know like, okay, this work is helping people. So I think there's a little bit of like personal gratification from the mentor side of, okay, the advice that I'm giving is working, or, oh, that didn't work, maybe I didn't communicate that correctly, let's try again type of thing. So really just, I would say if someone's taking the time to invest in you, that you have to also show them the results of this investment.
Right. And then, so you mentioned a couple of things. So that was the first one, mentorship.
So that was the first thing. Second one around, you mentioned salary negotiations. I would say, always negotiate. I think everything in life is a bit of a negotiation, right? So, if a recruiter were to reach out, always try to figure out, okay, well, what is the range? They usually should have that if they're serious. And do some research, right? Of like, what do people in your industry that have been working the same number of years, what do they typically make, right? And what's the role, right? Sometimes majors roles are going to make more than a commercial role, right? Or SLED. So understanding what that range looks like. And then you don't have to necessarily start low, but maybe start in the middle. I know some people are always like, go way high, but sometimes that can throw people off too. Like you don't want to be greedy. Because if you hit your number or exceed it, you should be making more, theoretically, with sales. So I would say just doing your research ahead of time. I've negotiated every role that I've gotten, which it was tough actually going from business development rep to inside rep, because they were like, well, this is a promotion and you're not going to be a cold caller anymore. So there's not really any negotiation, but there was a range. So they were like, based on your performance, we'll give you on the high side. But going from my previous job to Rubrik, I did negotiate because I did a little research on my side, talking to some of the current reps to understand, well, what do the benefits look like? And one thing that came up that I didn't realize was that they don't match 401k. And at my previous job, they did. They did match it. So I used that in my negotiations of saying, I'm walking away from, a good amount of RSUs, and the fact that, they do match my 401k and here they don't. So I'm going to need a little bit more salary to make up for that. So they did end up doing that. So I would say asking, figuring out what the benefit package looks like. I think HR should be able to provide that to you anyways. Luckily, I already knew people at Rubrik that I could just ask them and get a feel for, okay, what were some things what were some gotchas?
And that's something, you bring up a good point. It's not always money that you can negotiate. So I've been in roles where I've had a vacation plan. It just so happened that I've had the vacation plan and you only get so much time, or you can't take it off until, you've been here for 6 months or a year, early in my career. Yeah. But you can negotiate additional time off and say, hey, I know that we only get 2 weeks, but I have this, or can I get an extra day or two? There's other things outside of just your direct compensation, which, with the 401k, it's not direct compensation, but it is, right? Yeah. So you can kind of bring that in, but being able to negotiate other things. Mm-hmm. And for negotiation, obviously that's something probably as a rep, you have some experience with, but how would you recommend somebody get better or even just comfortable with negotiating?
Yes. So I think what is really important is your tone of voice, right? Not sounding too aggressive, but also not asking things like it's a question. Being very firm on what you're negotiating, but open to wiggle room. So what I did was I had a piece of paper. I took notes of like what I wanted, what were all my talking points. Okay, there was not this amount of benefit, and here's what I'm walking away from. Not to share that with HR, because I don't think you should ever really share that, but just to know in the back of your head, like here's everything that you could be walking away from, and here's what you could be getting, but where the gaps, and just having some notes that way when I'm on the phone with the recruiter, I'm very sure of myself of, okay, I have some RSUs that I'm walking away from, or I have this benefit that I would be losing coming to your organization. This is the amount that I would be comfortable moving away from. Is this something you can do? And like just being very firm with your ask and not too aggressive where the person's like, whoa. But but open to the wiggle room, right? So like I put in a range of what I would move away from. That way, if it was anything less than that, then no, this probably isn't the right opportunity, or can we get within here? So I would say just bringing notes, being prepared, practicing it even a couple times. I did that just before getting on the phone, a little role playing, which a sales rep is pretty, like a lot of sales reps do in their day-to-day. So if you're coming from a job that's not in sales, I would say even just sitting down with a family member, maybe it depends on your friend. If you have a really good relationship with your friend where you can talk about salary ranges, but I would say even a family member, your spouse.
And that's probably a good thing as part of building your network, right? Is having other people, at least one other person that you can bounce ideas off of. Because that's something that I've done in the past, is talking to other people, maybe not necessarily role playing, but just, hey, this is what it is, this is the role, this is kind of the range, this is what they're offering. And you'd be surprised at the different perspectives that other people can provide you. Because I had someone that I was like, oh, well, here's what I'm looking for. And, I used to have not so much a range, but more of a number. This is the number. And I had a friend of mine that said, okay, well, what if they offer this, right? Let's say it's, hey, I'm trying to make 80. 80 is my number. Yeah. And they say, okay, well, what if they offer you 75? I don't know. Yeah. I think those are things you have to kind of sit and you have to think through and really make sure that you're aware of, because that's something that I'm going to take out of this conversation is I've never written it down. I've always had it in my mind, but I think that also helps from your standpoint is being, like I said, being firm, but it also makes you sound more confident because where sometimes I'm sitting there and I'm probably taking just a couple seconds too long trying to remember as opposed to, hey, it's right here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then also I think taking down, like you'd mentioned that it's not just salary per se that you can negotiate, it's time off. I mean, think about RSUs, right? I had a ex-coworker of mine tell me that she didn't get any RSUs with
and
her job.
Just so that for people who may not be familiar.
Mm-hmm. Yes, restricted stock units. So that allows you to have stock into the company. And so especially for a global public company, usually they do offer some RSUs. And I had a friend of mine that said she never got any because she didn't negotiate for any. And I think one wake-up call for me on that conversation was the company doesn't care about you. They are going to try to spend the least amount of money to hire you. And so you really have to advocate for yourself and understand that, okay, what are all the things a company could offer me? And if they don't do RSUs, why? Or if they do, how much? And how much is that worth? What's the stock price of the company that you're looking at? Rubrik was pre-IPO when I first joined. So, I was asking around of, okay, well, what's the estimated value of this stock? And that kind of gave me a good idea too of when they would tell me how many RSUs I got, then I could kind of quickly calculate like, okay, I wrote down that it's, I'm just like saying
like
50,
$10.
50, I don't know, like $20. Then I could easily calculate, okay, this is how much that's going to be worth. So yeah, I think just understanding like all the different ways that a company could try and negotiate, and understand that, you know, at the end of the day, the company's looking out for itself. So you have to look out for yourself too.
And you said the word, and it made me think of something when you talked about your brand. You said advocate for yourself. How do you go through, and if you're not the kind of person that feels comfortable, and I know you've already touched on some of it, is just, hey, being that person direct to, you know, to other sales reps, reaching out so that they're aware of who Cynthia is. But is there anything else that you do to kind of advocate for yourself, like in your own role? Because that's something, I'll tell you, that I am still working on. I've been doing this for 20-something years, but even then I still at times find it difficult to advocate for myself. How do you go through and deal with that?
I think it's tough because oftentimes we associate, you know, if you're advocating for yourself, you're bragging about yourself, or it can come off not super humble. So there are some sneaky ways to advocate for yourself, and it's through finding like your champions, right? It's kind of like in a deal, if you're working, if you find someone that really likes your product and is going to advocate for you, you kind of have to find those people in your life as well. So building relationships with certain people where you say, okay, like they are also very promotional. So how do I get on their good side and get them to start singing my praises? Because that's the best kind of advocacy, right? Is not you saying how awesome you are and all these great things you're doing, but finding people that are going to say, oh my gosh, look at what Cynthia's doing. We should be doing this. Or, you know, like, look at this sort of event, like comment on your post, like them, you know, send an email out to your sales org about something good you're doing. So I think identifying, like, usually your manager is probably going to be someone that's going to want to do that, because it's in their best interests to promote you so that it makes them look good. So I would say, you know, sending even things to your boss about like, hey, you know, I sent off this cool email to the customer, got this response. You should share this out with the team. Maybe they could maybe they could learn something from it. And then now they're forwarding it off to the team saying, hey guys, Cynthia did this great email and it worked. Just finding people like that, or even like fellow coworkers that you can just tell by their personality that they, you know, like to boost other people up, or, you know, want to promote things because it helps them. You kind of have to look at it from that perspective too, of, okay, who are people that I can kind of partner up with, and they can also sing my praises for me. So it's not coming from me. But I would say those are kind of some ways to advocate for yourself. But definitely sending, or even just one thing, like I have a group chat with the other sales reps on my team, and we'll send emails to each other or texts, you know. So if I do something that works, like sending a text in the group chat so that they can all see it and say, hey, you know, this is something that worked. So this is outside of my manager, right? We have our own like sales reps only only chat, and like we'll put messages in there to help each other up, or, you know, if something's not working, say something, and just kind of stay engaged in that way where you're building a relationship outside of, you know, corporate, and then have them be like, oh, Cynthia like gave us some helpful tips. And so that, you know, is another way to just quietly advocate for yourself in a way where you're just letting people know like you're here, you're trying to help them. I think that's the best way to get people to, you know, click on your email in a way, is if they're like, oh, you know, Mandy sent this email, it's probably something useful. So I would say those are kind of just different ways.
I know that you mentioned the kind of going back to the original question where you had talked about, you know, negotiations, like some of the key points. Was there anything else? I didn't want to kind of revisit.
Oh, I did want to talk about the difference between having a mentor and having a coach. So I talked a lot about how mentors are people that, you know, you can kind of go to for helping you in your life, right? So that could be career, it could be personal, what have you. But it is important too to find people who will be coaches as well. And that basically means if you have a certain skill that you want to get better at, and you see someone that's really good at that skill or could help you, then you ask them to be a coach for you. And a coach is a little bit more temporary than a career or than a mentor. Mentor, in my opinion, is more someone that's, personally invested in your well-being and your success long-term, versus a coach is going to be someone that, is going to be helpful for, say, you want to talk to them for like a few months and really get good at the skill, or maybe a year, and then that was their purpose in a way.
And I just kind of want to make sure I understand. So a mentor you would see more as somebody invested in your overall development, and a coach maybe just in a specific area or skill set.
So I had a couple coaches as well that I asked for help from, to say, hey, I really want to get better at presenting in front of customers. I get a little nervous. Then I had a coworker of mine that would help me with that, and we would work on this, every week or so, is just getting comfortable pitching products and saying it very seamlessly, leading a meeting successfully. And then after I got really good at it, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. So it's a different relationship. Obviously, coaches can still be your friends in a way, right? It's not like someone that's, you just use them and leave. Like it's more like you do have a relationship with them, but they're not your mentor. They're just someone that's helping you get better at something.
When I thought you were saying coach, I thought it was going to be something completely different. So I'm glad you had that clarification and really understand that this is, somebody that's helping with a specific skill set. Because I think a lot of times, I'll tell you me, I thought they were kind of almost interchangeable. Like, what's the difference? It's just a different label. Mm-hmm. But you kind of see it very distinctly, and I like the way that you kind of broke it down for me.
Yeah. I think of like coaching, it's like in sports, they're helping you, but they're not your mentor. So, but yeah, just a lot of different people, I think, in our day-to-day lives that I think maybe we forget to leverage. But if you're here to help people, then I think you'd be surprised to see that there's a lot of people that want to help you too.
Is there anything throughout this conversation that I haven't asked you, or that you think I might have missed that probably we didn't cover?
I don't think so. I feel like we've covered so much.
I mean, I do too. I appreciate everything that you've talked about. I mean, I think you gave us a wide range of topics too, right? I'm excited for the things that you've done, with the nonprofit side, kind of even building your own skill set, doing the branding. I know that you're doing a lot of things in the community and just kind of helping and giving back. So I can't think of anything at this time. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your experiences, and I'm sure that somebody out there is going to find this very informative and helpful. I know I did. Awesome.
Well, I really appreciate you, taking the time and reaching out to me to be a part of this experience. I feel like I've learned a lot too, just sitting here and listening to myself, and also hearing your stories. So I was just as beneficial to me too.
Awesome. Well, thanks. I appreciate it. And, hopefully in, a couple years we can get an update, and, you can tell us more about the nonprofit, and I'm sure by that time we'll have done, who knows what other items.
I know, so much could happen.
Well, thank you. And we'll talk to you soon.
Yes. Sounds good. Thank you.